All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back today to Retro Tech. I believe we are live. It looks like everything's going good. We got fast, super speeded internet here to make sure we got a great connection. And I have, I'm just going to pop on over here, my good friend, Zez, with me to come check in with everybody. How's everybody doing today? How you doing, Zez?
All right.
Hey, everybody.
Doing well, thank you. Hold on, I'm hearing some feedback.
I believe we are live.
That's all right. Yeah, man, I'm doing good. Here we go. Turn that one down there. Yeah, much better. Doing good, thank you. It's been a while. Last chat we had Shank on there. That was cool to hear that great story from our good friend. And yeah, man, just nice just to hang out, you and me. You've been picking up some retro CRTs. You got some old stuff to talk about. I've been manically binging retro PC parts for the last few weeks. So we'll get into that chat as we go on today. So if you're in the chat here, thanks very much for joining us. If you've been buying retro shit lately, tell us about it. Have you been buying some old CRTs? Have you been buying retro PC stuff? Just because that's the topic of the day. So write that in your chat if you've been into that recently. Steve, what have you been up to this week, mate?
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, shout out here to Chris S, defeatist, Ronnie S, and CC. How's it going in the chat? Everybody, drop a like if you don't mind, just to boost the signal here. And yeah, I've been so I don't know. I did the video a couple. 3 weeks ago about going out and getting a really old Sony. It's the oldest Sony TV I have. It's from the 70s, which we talked about in a live stream here last year. So right after that happened, it wasn't too long after that happened that one night I was driving down the road after dropping off my son to hang out at his friend's house, and I would say about 8 houses down from my house there was just this box. I mean, it was just a square, of course, CRT, and it was dark, so there's just a square CRT. I catch it in like my peripheral as I'm driving down the street, and it's got a piece of paper on it taped to it, and I'm like, oh, somebody's thrown this thing out, hopefully it gets picked up. So I definitely yeah, no, it was hilarious. I had my old Mercury Grand Marquis. That's what I did. I slammed on the brakes, and I was like, "Oh, that's a TV." So I had to go up to the next turnaround and pull a U-turn, and I just drove back up.
That yacht does not stop quickly. All right, that freaking boat that you've got to drive, it's got momentum. All right, we need to plan a stop like 3 blocks ahead.
Yeah.
So, okay, I see you had to cruise around.
Yeah. So I had to do 2 U-turns because then I had to go back, and then I had a U-turn back, so I was on the same side of the road as the TV again. So I got that one, and I was laughing. I haven't even tested it yet, but it said that there's a little piece of paper on it, and it says it works, and that's all it said. So I took that one, and I was just laughing. I was like, man, you wouldn't believe it, Adrian. I found, my wife, I found another CRT on the side of the street. And then I guess it was probably within 24 hours, I got a message from this guy, Lance, on Patreon. And so Lance sends me a DM, and it's somebody it's a Facebook Marketplace listing. That is, the listing was 6 hours old when he sent it to me, and he's like, this is closer to you than me. And it was 2 old Sony Trinitrons that were, one is the one that you saw in the thumbnail and is right behind me, and another one is just a different one, a little bit newer. But they were listed on there, and it just said free Trinitrons. And I was like, oh, crap, awesome. And so I got on to Facebook, and I DM'd the guy, and he messaged me right back and said, oh, there's one other person who said they were going to get them in front of me. And I was like, oh, man, that stinks. And I was like, okay. He's like, if anything falls through, I'll let you know. And I was like, dadgummit, that stinks. And so I was like, awesome, yeah, just let me know. And so I didn't think anything was going to happen with them. And I think I waited probably another 6 hours, and it was later that evening, and then I got a guy, the guy who I had messaged, his name was Jeff, who owned the CRTs. And again, this was only a 30-minute drive from where I live. And he said, hey, I talked to that guy. I told him, I asked him if he was really serious because I know you would be serious. And if he wanted to come get him. And he said, just let you have him. And I was like, well, awesome. So then I said back, Jeff, I was like, great. Can I come get him tomorrow? He's like, yeah, man, that's awesome. I said, I know I will definitely. The thing was, it said both of them were not working. Right. So that's the other catch why these two were free. But still, they said non-working. They said not easy to find still, these Trinitrons. So
you're the wizard, dude. You can fix it.
Well, right. So that's what I was saying. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I know who you are. I've seen a couple of your shows and stuff. And actually, he's like, I was going to get in touch with you like a year ago about these things, but then I just never did. And then I threw them up on Marketplace. And so I was like, great, well, I'll come out tomorrow. And then I was like, do you mind maybe like I don't care if you're not up for it, but if you want to, can like we film me coming out there and getting the TVs? He's like, oh, absolutely. You can film anything. He's like, I got a collection of stuff. So it actually turned out to be a pretty wild stuff. Like I went over there, I talked to him and his wife. He's about our age. And he had found both of these. And, there's a lot of story. I don't want to spoil a lot of it because I'm actually going to make an episode about it. Because he went in, we filmed, and he told me like the story of each one of the TVs as I picked him up from his basement shop. And then he showed me a lot of really cool stuff. Like he had a lot of regular Nintendo, a Nintendo collection of like rarities that I would say was pretty good. So I sat there and he let him show off a lot of that stuff. He had a lot of cool little things in there that he showed off after, and like some interesting stuff he had set up CRTs on. But both of these CRTs that he had given to me had stopped. So they were both 19 inches. There's this one. And then there was another one. And the other one, actually, he said he was using it with his buddy and they were playing a Nintendo game and it just started smoking out the back. And then it started, like, he could see light coming into it. So he took the back off and he showed me this picture. It's one of those giant resistors that's like covered in some kind of material. It's not like a normal regular resistor. This is like a high voltage resistor. So it's like meant to withstand a lot of heat. Well, the casing had broke down on it. And so when you turn it on, it would just light a big, like a Christmas tree. So he turned that one off. He said this one used to work too, which is, it just stopped working one day. Like he went to power it on. He didn't power back on. And so long story short, he gave me these two TVs, and then he's like, well, when that one caught on fire, I actually had this other one down here, and then he points like down into a corner, and it was a little 25-inch, just generic. It was like Panasonic or RCA TV with just it's a black shell, just 25-inch bubble tube, and composite video in. And I was like, do you want to get rid of that one too? And his wife was like, yeah, he could get rid of that. So he's like, yeah, she'll like it if I get rid of this one too, actually. And so I was like, great, I'll take that one too. So I took all three of those TVs from this guy. And the third one is I think it's pretty much guaranteed to be a good match to go into like a arcade drop in. So that's the plan for that one.
Good score, man.
Yeah, so that was good.
That's nice. So it just happens. Like that's 30 minutes. It's not that far from you. So my question is, how come Bargain Hunter Steve missed it on Facebook and someone else had to? Do you not have the alerts?
Oh, no. I don't turn on like alerts like that. No, that stuff drives me nuts. Even though it sounds terrible, like then yeah. I don't even like, it's really difficult. I haven't paid I have a hard time with the Facebook Messenger thing where I have to actually like physically leave it open and watch it or it will. And I'd rather not like let it pop up on my thing and start over notifying me. But no, it was so. And again, like there's these times. It was right after I did that shopping episode too.
Mm-hmm.
So that shopping episode, I filmed a lot of that clips of me going through and looking at the stuff on Facebook Marketplace within the week of this all happening. So I was like, I had already gone through and like looked at everything, and I wasn't like looking at it again right away, because a lot of times I'll get on there and I won't see anything new for 2 months, you know? And I think that's
the luck of the draw, and then it just drops like that.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk about, I want to go to a different topic. Ronnie in the chat is talking about he picked up a plasma this week. Now, Ronnie, if you can go to how big is that plasma? Because I'm asking Ronnie. Ronnie said he paid 150, and I know plasma is near and dear to your heart, Steve. Not that you've ever bought one secondhand. You've got that amazing plasma that you got new. I'm thinking of that because I've been thinking I'm going to pick up a plasma just because I'm a maniac who doesn't have one. And I wanted to talk about the price and ask people as well what they expect to pay for a plasma, because I'm seeing like 42-inch plasma, like a Philips, like a not like Sony, but reasonable brand. Even there's a Sony 42-inch actually, $50, 60-inch. Okay, holy shit, that's big.
I bet that
weighs a ton. My point is that there's a Sony plasma 40, 50, something like that. And it's only $50 on my local marketplace. Where Ronnie says he's going 150, which is, a factor larger. What do we expect to pay for plasmas these days? Do you have any experience, Steve?
I don't really know. I mean, like as far as getting them anymore, I don't. Shoo. Like
you're set.
Well,
so
no, that one actually when I moved out of my other house, it got damaged by flooding, so I had to get rid of it.
Oh, goddamn.
So that was, but I mean, it was the thing with that one is it was actually it would suffer from a weird type of. I'd had it for so long, and I'd used it a lot. And I mean, I bought it new in 2008, around that time. And so by 2024, it would get this weird screen retention, like image retention, where it would almost burn in the image. And then you get this weird stuff that would be burned into your screen. And you'd be like, man, I think this display's done, but then you come back a day later and it would just have gone away and the TV would clear it out. Now that didn't happen until probably the last 5 years of having it. So I'm thinking that these are going to be along. I mean, obviously there's something going on with the panels. It's similarly to even a CRT or something where you're getting like degradation over
it's their time. All right, now we're coming to uncharted territory. We actually don't know how long plasma technology will last. This is as long as they will be. So, okay, so Ronnie said he's been looking around. He's clearly the bargain hunter, and he said 50 to 200 for plasmas. I'm seeing locally max 50. But again, I live in bumfuck Estonia, very small market. I think that I suspect now is my golden age to pick up a plasma here. So I might go for that one for 50 for that Sony, or I might just make him an offer for 20.
Yeah, I don't think that you could go. I mean, at least it's cheap, so right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I just want to have it. I think it's something I want to grab now. So 200, I'm seeing here Ronnie's talking about Panny VT60, 200 in Michigan. Tons of Pioneer Elites go for 100 to 200.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, my local chain of thrift stores here, they're called Uuskasutuskeskus, which is a Estonian name, and they have a weird pricing scale where basically the larger the TV, the more it costs, no matter of the technology. They don't understand that bit. So you get a massive plasma for $42.50 and they put some stupid price tag on it, and it doesn't make sense. But my local marketplace, I'm seeing, I think I'm going to go pick up a plasma just to tuck it away for future sake. 50 plasma. Neuromancer's using a plasma. I think so too. Ronnie's got one. Been using since 2012, 11K hours.
All right,
yeah,
cool.
I think I might like to put one on the wall here. I'm not sure yet, but I mean, it's not like I'm looking. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6 screens here already. So of course I need another freaking screen.
Yeah, like ultimately it was my plan to save that old plasma and put it on the other wall behind this one, but again, it's gone. And I've been using I've been using another CRT I found like last year on the side of the street, which is the Samsung Slim Fit CRT. I've never played a game on it. I've been watching Star Trek The Next Generation since like December, episodes on it. And so
what medium are you playing it from?
I bought
VHS or what?
No, I just bought a huge DVD collection of the entire series. It was brand new and it was $50 for the entire series. So I started like before I'd found season 1 and season 2 on in like thrift stores for probably $5 or something on DVD. So I got through both of those, and then I started looking at buying like the rest of them, and it was starting to become where it was like $15 to $25 each season, or I could buy the entire season over again and another get copies again of 1 and 2. And so I just did that because it was less to get the whole series. So I made it. I'm at the season ending or season finale for season 4. I've watched them all on the same TV. I've never watched like the show beyond the first 2 seasons, really. Anyway.
Oh, then it gets good. Season 3 onwards is when it gets really good.
So season 4 was really like, it's been like cracking me up. So I don't know.
Are you in the Borg? Is that already the Borg?
Yeah, you get past that. That's the third.
Okay. Best of both worlds. We're talking about that. Right. So DVD is a great format.
Well, that's
for plasma.
Well, the interesting thing I'll tell about this one is this CRT. I'm using it with a very interesting DVD player that does HDMI out and analog video out, older one. Ooh. And it's got a direct button on the front of it that allows you, if you use the HDMI out, you could press it and you could cycle through HD upscaling, and it'll jump between, it just does up to 1080i. So it does 480p and you press it, it'll jump it to 720p and then 1080i. The interesting thing about the Star Trek DVDs is they're all in 4:3 aspect ratio, and it retains that aspect ratio when you go up to 1080i. But there's not like the bad thing about the DVDs is they're like terribly made. Like it looks like bad YouTube videos where you see, nothing but like blocky artifacts over every transition in a scene. And like, no matter how, like, it doesn't matter what mode I'm using the TV on, it's not improving the image quality of the show, really, unfortunately. I think you could definitely, if there would be better scans of this out there, it's pretty bad, I think. But
I think there's a whole actually the ultimate quote unquote way to might do this is, I know there's an effort out there to scan the laser disc. So all these were produced on laser disc, and I know there's quite a large project out there. What they do, as I understand, is they get many copies of the laser disc, right, as many as they can get, and then they do a bit by bit duplication of that, and then they seem to, a process I don't quite understand, they overlay like 10 copies of an episode on top of one another, and that somehow increases the fidelity. And that's how they're looking for like 10 copies of like every episode, and they dump them to Laserdisc, somehow digitally combine them, storing these old things. So
yeah, that's like so Doomsday duplicator device.
That's it. It's something to do with this.
Where it taps into the RF like feed of the video like before it goes into any composite video, because it's not like put into composite mode. It's a way that it like rips it raw. Because I've seen like a Linus Tech Tips offshoot channel doing a tutorial about it, which was crazy recently. I know, within the last 3 months or something.
Right on.
But
so if you're going to watch, you said you've got that DVD player that does the upscaling.
Yes.
So is it better for you to have that player upscale or let the TV upscale typically?
I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, because that's the only thing I've ever used this TV for. So what I like the fact that and I have seen differences. I like the fact that I can use this to test different resolution outputs just by pressing a button on a DVD player to see what happens on a TV from that time period. So for example, I often will hook this HDMI. It's weird. I've been getting a few digital televisions in here to be serviced. One was a Sony that was a 27-inch Sony.
What do you mean by digital television?
Well, I mean, they've got HDMI and they're all processing this stuff at 31 kilohertz, but then they're like downscaling composite, frame buffering it and stuff. Similarly,
like a HD CRT, like a widescreen HD CRT.
No, this isn't even widescreen. Some of these are like 4x3.
Huh.
But they'll do 1080, and then like this one would do. It was really strange. It was like it hated 480p. I couldn't remember which one. It was like it hated for you to throw progressive signals into the like composite or component video input, and it would do all kinds of weird stuff on the screen. It would shake, and that was like the only way it would do it. It was like using that, and then if you go to HDMI. Or no, I'm sorry. It was HDMI, like at one of them. Anyway, you get to go through there, though. Like I documented this for the customer. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but you could use that to simply switch through that and see what it does, because you're immediately getting that resolution out without. And then from there, it's just another easy thing to test with that I feel like is a little bit more useful than a normal DVD player.
Yeah, sure. I mean, now you say it, I'm thinking like, how would I test 720p 1080i? I mean, I'm guessing maybe the Xbox 360, the back here, might be a candidate for that. But that's also, I mean, that's even easier. DVD, button.
Yeah.
You're testing.
Well, and another thing is that's what I was trying to do on some of these TVs, because you'll get into ones that run on, that will run 480p on some of these later models. 480p. And some of them will go to like 1080i, like randomly through component, and they don't even have maybe an HDMI input. But the problem I was having was with when I was trying to use my Xboxes, I apparently have the Xboxes that you have to go in and change the firmware on, because it doesn't. I have one game that does 1080i on the original. Now, this isn't 360. This is the OG original Xbox. Okay. Yes. It's an ATV like racing game. Stupid. There's only like 6 of them that do 1080. So I try to get in there and use that, but the Xbox that I have won't do 1080 because there's like a certain firmware that doesn't work in 1080. Okay. So then I was like, well, I'm running into weird problems that I don't want to deal with. So then I just go and find the DVD player and use it. It's kind of an easier thing. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems easy. It's just, there's no fucking around. It's just press the button and it's in. So did I understand, sorry, you said that your plasma, the one that I saw when you were there, it got damaged, but you're still using it, or now it's a different plasma? What?
No, I don't have any plasmas anymore. Okay. I had to, I had to get rid of it. What happened was I had, that TV, man, was so heavy, and mine was 50 inches, and that thing was so doggone heavy that it was the very last thing that I was moving out of the basement that you stayed in when you were here. That was funny about, right? So when I moved out, I had that in the basement alone on the ground, and it was even in the it was in a box, like it was in a moving box for plasmas that was huge, laid on the ground. I was like, I'll come get it. I couldn't move it here's the craziest thing. I was able to get my my Neo Geo cabinet out of the basement by myself. I couldn't get that plasma screen out of the basement by myself. It was so heavy and awkward. And so I left.
So first of all, how did you get the Neo Geo cab out?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Like, it's one of those things you start. I wrapped it in 2 moving blankets. Like, I took everything out of it. So it was just the cabinet and like the control panel and the wiring. I took everything else out of it and then wrapped it in moving blankets and literally rolled it around and pushed it, and I got it halfway up the stairs, and like for like an hour I was just holding it resting, because if I would have let it go, it would have come crashing back down. And so somehow, I don't know, I got it to twist and get out of there, and it was like the biggest accomplishment ever. But it was one of those things where I wish I wouldn't have started, but I got so far in. If I'd have stopped, I was more scared of being run over and crushed by this cabinet than.
It's quite an epitaph, really, to hear. Here lies Steve, crushed by a
right,
big red Neo
that's
Geo.
what I was thinking. I was like, my family's gonna find me down here dead, crushed by my Neo Geo. So the TV, I left it there. And I was like, I'll come get it tomorrow. Well, there's a huge rainstorm. The basement floods. I come back, and that box is like a sponge with the TV in it, just soaked up like 20 gallons of water. So then I took it to the dumpster, and the recycler, they just,
It's done.
It's gone. So I figured that was a fine way for it to die. Then it was meant to do it like that, I guess. But it was an awesome TV. You gotta, man, it's like, again, those are going to be at the same age. I feel like, too, that they're going to have, the one I had was a Hitachi brand. That was really good. I remember from that time period, who else? Panasonic and like Pioneer. If you find one of those could be good, I think.
Yeah, I see locally there's a Sony. I think I'm going to try, and they want 50 for it. I think I'm going to go ask them. And no one's buying it, right? So
right. Like, so it's a
I think
Bravia
I'll go off them a little bit
or
more.
something, I would say.
Maybe. Let's pull it up, actually. I'll go
see what, like this Hitachi, I remember buying it because it was one of the first that it's weird. It was able to accept 1080p and give you a 1080p image, but it was like over one input. It would do real 1080p and everything else would just line double it somehow. But it was one of the first that would do 1080. And I remember everything else that's what I went to. I looked in the shop. That's just funny. When you go to a shop that was only for TVs still. I mean, those things probably don't even exist. No, they don't exist. Like Best Buy, maybe. But this was literally a shop that was only TVs. And you just go in and look at 60 TVs set up. And this was the best looking one out of all of them at that time.
So what do we got here? The Sony that I'm looking at, the one 20 weeks ago it was listed. So this thing ain't moving. They're going to accept less than the 50 euros they're asking. 42 TS2E, flat panel color. I'm looking through here. Flat panel color TV. Wait, is that even a plasma now I think about it?
Is it LCD?
Actually, I might be fooling myself. That's the one that I thought was a plasma is not actually a plasma. Okay. But in that case, what do we got here? I've got a Panasonic Viera for starting price 10 cents. Love it.
Oh, man. I imagine some places you'll be able to find all kinds of these.
Panasonic 25, Salwa Plasma Telecast 42. So, I think that's Sony connectivity picture panel. Oh, okay. So the Sony's not. The Sony's an LCD. My bad. All right, I'm going to discount that. But there's two Pioneer ones available here for fuck all.
Yeah, I had a.
But yeah, okay. They're gonna weigh a lot. I gotta work out how to carry that shit.
Yeah, I had a friend that. This is gonna sound awful, but so my. So this guy who was a buddy of mine, he lived. This was when I lived in Tennessee. He lived in the neighborhood next to mine in the same. So we were roughly, a couple streets down from each other. And this was when I was an insurance agent, and he was working for a company, and I remember his father passed away and left him like a couple $100,000. And he was really close with his dad, so he was really tore up about it. So he just quit his job, and he wasn't married. He actually was he was dating my sister-in-law, so my wife's sister. And he would be home all the time. And this was right when the PlayStation 3 came out, pretty much. So he bought a PlayStation 3 with this money and this Sony Bravia plasma that had like the glass around the sides of it. And this was all brand new. So, I mean, and I'll be honest, I'd spend like half the time. I would just not even go to the insurance office if I didn't have anything to do. I would just go over to his house and we would sit around and honestly just smoke like doobies and play on this machine. We played like the Tiger Woods, and then we played one of the like the Burnout games that was new then, and we were just like addicted to it. We would just sit there and play it for hours upon hours. And I just remember that TV was a plasma, and it looked incredible. Like I thought it looked better because it had the higher hertz refresh, whatever, higher hertz than my Hitachi. And I was like, dude, this thing looks better than my TV. And I was so like pissed off because I was like, I can't like justify going and buying that TV, even though I loved it at the time. So I know there's got to be one out there somewhere that's a good one. And I want to say this was about 50 inches also.
There is. And finally, before we just leave the topic of plasma, Ronnie, I want to throw one out here. Locally, I see another one. It's a brand I've never heard of before. Hantarex.
Okay.
And if I look at Hantarex, it seems to be maybe industrial ones. I'll paste that into the chat, Hantarex. So, but the dude wants like 150 euros for it. So he's fucking kidding himself for sure. But I was just wondering, is Hantarex some, like, it looks like maybe it's meant for shop, commercial.
I mean, did you say Hantarex as in Hantarex?
Yes.
So that's the company that used to make, CRT chassis for arcade machines. The Polo, 25-inch Polo arcade chassis. So that's interesting. I don't know. I was like, I know I've heard of that. Here company.
We go. Yeah, Hantarex CRT. Okay, you Google that, you see some good info. Okay, interesting. So look, for sure, 150. I'm not paying that, but and I'm sure that ad has been up. That dude's just dreaming.
Yeah.
But all right, monitors too for arcade. Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Whew, why
don't you talk about what you've been getting into?
What have I been doing?
Yeah.
So I've now we're here. However far we're into the chat, we're all friends here. So the first thing that I want to tell everyone, and maybe even talk to you, Steve, a bit more about it, is 2 weeks ago, my twin baby girls were born. I am a father now for the first time. And twin
congratulations,
girls were born,
right?
So thank you very much. Thank you. So that's what I've been doing. What have you been doing, Lewis? Well, I've been doing that. So they were born 2 weeks ago now. And of course, as any person who's been a parent, which is all new to me, I'm 45. It's my first kid. So I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Of course, that takes over everything, right? Feeding every 3 hours, looking after them and all that stuff. So that's been taking up all my time. Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone in the chat being so kind and polite. We haven't made like a social media, thing yet, or put them out. I don't really know what to do with that yet. But hey, we're all friends here in the chat. It's good. So yeah, that's huge for us. So I've been looking after these kids, coming to deal with that. But to talk more personally, that produces a lot of emotions for a man, up and down, and all good. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean anything negative here, but of course, first children, a roller coaster of emotions and all good. But when I'm trying to deal with my emotions, the way that I deal with them is by buying old shit. That's the way that I cope with that. And the way that I've been coping with the roller coaster of emotions of my children being born is to buy retro computer stuff. And like nothing major, no crazy big. I didn't buy a Voodoo for 150 euros, just like $10, $20, stuff here looking all day long. And that sort of calms me, I guess, and keeps me going. So I have a shit ton of retro PC gear here that I've been getting through. So thankfully, I try and do it where I don't bankrupt myself, like I let myself buy this stuff, look to this stuff, get this cool stuff, but nothing that's, gonna bankrupt me. But I have one item here that it's very close to my heart that I found. So this is Windows NT, the install disk, and it's like still in the plastic wrap. It's the disk here, still in that plastic. And for some reason, this, like just that hits hard with nostalgia. The certificate of authenticity, there's a code there. Windows NT, you never need to use it. There's the official CD. And if I kind of touch the crease here, I don't want to open it yet, but there's definitely a boot disk in here. Like I can sort of feel it here. Yeah. There's a boot floppy disk underneath here. So I bought this for $7. Again, like I can't say that anything has made me feel so good for $7 in a long time. Just the randomness that comes up locally. I don't know. It just reminds me of things that we never would have had when, back in the day, but here it is. So it just sits on my desk right here. It just sits next to me. I look at it all day when I need, of course, looking at my beautiful children gives me a dopamine hit, but just looking at that also gives me a different kind of dopamine hit.
That's funny. Yeah.
So buying those.
So go ahead. Yeah.
No. So I've been building different PCs. So the main one is I've got this big old Dell Precision 390, and it's what Core 2 is the processor name, and it was like late Windows XP. It's as good as Windows XP ever got, right? And so it was pretty cheap. It came from the thrift store, but we'll play all the XP games that you want. So it's not the cool Pentium 3 as such. It's not like that classic area of Pentium, but it still plays XP. It was cheap. And so I've been building up that as my ultimate. I've got one of those. Remember those shuttle PCs? Those ones that came in like a small rectangle that was so big? Like that's the case. I don't know. I pulled it apart right now. That's the case for it? That's the case for it. The shuttle
looks like a PVM case.
Yeah. They're super small, and they're like, it was like a thing, shuttle. They made these really small ones. So I'm building one of those. Then a couple of days ago, I've got a Pentium 3 and a Pentium 3 motherboard here. I found that because I'm finding when you got to find those bargains, if someone's selling like the full system, they know what they've got, right? And you're going to pay a lot. But I found some guy that had a bunch of old shit and he didn't label it correctly. Like the title of the sale ad was just look at picture. So, okay, I start looking through his ads, look at picture. And I realized when I zoomed in, he had a slot 1 Pentium 3 motherboard. And I'm like, I'll buy that. That was $20. So pick that one up sight unseen. And I think I was talking to you in the chat earlier that I found a Pentium 2 for a guy here, and it's on the local marketplace. So in the local marketplace, they've got the local shipping options, like the parcel boxes. I'm sure you have them as well. And it's all integrated in. And so you just click yes, and he's got the parcel box. So I said, yeah, I'm going to buy this Pentium 2 box. It comes through the parcel machine. Beautiful. Then I get a message from the dude, and he's like, your machine doesn't fit in the parcel box. And actually, I bought two. I bought a second old PC from him as well. I get a second message from him 20 minutes later. The other PC doesn't fit in the parcel box.
Yeah.
So he hasn't written back, but I want the Pentium 2 from him so badly. He lives an hour away. So I said, fuck it, dude. I'll drive out to you over the weekend and pick up that Pentium 2. So I've got all kinds of crap here. I've got about 6 Sound Blaster cards. I didn't mean to buy 6 Sound Blaster cards. It just sort of happened. Lots of sound, yeah. I bought like a bunch of old cards and shit like that. So I'm satisfied. The mania, the urge inside of me is satisfied that I've got enough retro PC stuff. I've got several builds, 3 or 4 now. Enough old gear.
So is this like
calm down?
Yeah, is this like something to keep you busy, like when you're up late at night on like baby duty, trying to get him to go to sleep?
Definitely making bad choices late at night. Definitely. Yeah. I'm up all night. I'm looking at things. There's something as well though about, and maybe this speaks to FOMO feeling that many of us can get around retro. That the FOMO is real, right? And there's some old thing and I want to have it. And I'm thinking a lot about like, what might I want in 5 or maybe even 10 years time? So in 10 years time, what do I wish I would have picked up now cheaply? Oh, I wish I would have picked up a bunch of Sound Blaster Live, Sound Blaster Audigy, these XP machines. They're cheap. Like nothing's over like $20 here that I'm buying, right? I think I would regret not getting them later again. And it's the same thing like with Lego. Why don't I buy some Lego right now when it's a bit cheaper? I know I'm going to regret it later. So this could all be, maybe there's psychologists out there who can talk about maybe I'm just justifying myself as a retail therapy. But I'm now satisfied that I've got enough retro PC stuff that I can build several nice retro PCs and have them, and I don't need to feel the FOMO. The only thing that I think I don't have is the top graphics card. Remember the Voodoo 3D effects, Voodoo 1, Voodoo 2, Voodoo 3. And they are hard to find, and they genuinely cost a lot no matter where you are right now. And I can see some sellers in Germany selling Voodoo 3s for 150. I may, depending 2 a.m. Maybe I'm really, feeling it.
You don't need to do that. You need to get a good night rest on that. I remember, I can feel a lot of those old, especially like that era where the Voodoo graphics cards kind of started showing up on shelves with, I thought they had great marketing kind of back then when they showed up with the boxes were just great with so eye-catching where it's like looking you in the face with those eyes on each one. And I didn't even know what the heck the things were when I first saw it. And it's like anything's becoming stuff like that was destined to eventually become wanted. I think that things that are the next thing is always going to be what's kind of off the burner for it. Always comes in cycles where it's like a gaming system goes down, but it's almost like all the stuff that's going to go down and then become hot again is beyond our even generation, right? Now it's like the kids that are probably into Switch stuff. A bunch of that Switch stuff is going to go super cheap when Switch 2 comes out. And then like the generation after that, everybody will be nostalgic for Switch 1 games. And then they'll be looking for the physical media of Switch 1, since that's like the last era of probably truly physical style media we'll have.
Right. So to me, I feel like that's I'm just justifying my mania here. I appreciate that. But finding it at the right time, like talking to Ronnie, and Ronnie says plasmas in his area are going for 50 to 200. Well, they're going for $20 in my area. So maybe I should pick one up now. This stuff is at its $20 level right now. I'll just pick it up and put it away. Again, I think I'm justifying some sort of deep emotional desires going on here. But
CRTs were the same way. So just a flashback. It's always fun to talk to you and our other friends that are. It's interesting to me how you guys are going through a lot of these cycles now with younger children, and I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. So it seems like it was almost a decade ago when I was dealing with a lot of these things, which doesn't seem like a long time ago, but at the same time, it does seem like a very long time ago. And it wasn't for me, like it wasn't so much when I didn't have twins, so I only had one child and then another one come later, obviously 4 years. But it was kind of when my second child was coming that I was more like trying to get things going before then. And that's really when my wife was pregnant. The second time was when I was trying to get into CRTs, like at the beginning, and I was buying the wrong CRTs, and I was learning. And this is before even I had made a single video about a CRT. I had gone and talked to my mom, who she still had a really good Toshiba that was like 32 inches, which is still in my house now, and.
Oh, the one in the lounge room.
Right, yeah. So that one you've seen. So I first started grabbing that, and then I was like, this is good, but it's not doing enough. It's not doing enough for me. So then the only thing available on the internet at this time was maybe 2 Phone Dork videos, which were hilarious. It's like forever ago. And then Bob's 1-page write-up on CRTs. And so I just was like obsessed. I was like, I have to get a BVM. And of course I bought the wrong one. I bought the A series, and then I was trying to shove stupid HDMI down to SDI to watch on this like $500 BVM I bought with no way to watch analog content on it. And then I finally found the one from that I had gotten, the 1954 PVM that was the first one I actually got that was good. And all I could think about the whole time was getting more of them, getting different ones, and then I still having babies, right? So there must be something going on there where it's like a feeling that you're obviously going to be going through a changing season, and there's no way you can't like trick your brain or even probably your instincts into knowing that like, oh, you're not really, things aren't going to be that different when these kids, especially having twins, right? You're not going to trick your subconscious into thinking everything's going to be relaxation the way it is. So maybe there is something to that feeling that, oh, well, now this is here. If I really want this, I better do it now. I better have this over here ready. And then you have time, maybe like, oh, see, now then I'll have these weird time blocks where my kids are not sleeping, or they are sleeping and I'm not tired. And one of them's got to be fed. And one of them just wants to sit there and play on the mat. And I need to have something to do. So then that's kind of like, I remember that phase. But yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic. I was laughing to myself thinking about how are you like, obviously, did you have to go get a second storage unit now again?
Oh, right. So I've still got the one, and I'm managing. So to fill everyone in, I rent a container. Basically, it is literally a shipping container.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It's very cheap. It's $80 a month. Super cheap for a whole shipping container. And I can literally walk there. Like I take the dog for a walk and I go to the container. So it's clearly that's one of the advantages, cheaper shipping. So I can just put everything. I've got the CRTs. I've got everything in there. So that is another factor that can fuel this or aid this mania, because I know like I've got plenty of room. It's not a room issue here, right? I could just stick the stuff in there, all the CRTs in there. I've got all my 14-inch BVMs. I've got a whole collection of them. I got 5 or 6 of the 20-inch consumer Trinitrons in there, and other stuff I haven't even fired up. I'll just let it be. Like I've just got space to let it be cheaply. Actually, another story is there's one store here. I made a video about this one local secondhand store called the Komissionikaup, which is like secondhand store in Estonian. And this dude is like a total hoarder, but it's a secondhand store, and you can buy electronics, and it's all like he offers a guarantee. It's the prices are a little bit high, but you can talk to the guy and you can buy it straight away, and he gives you a warranty and stuff like that. And this dude is like, every time I go there, his stock is just up and up and up. A huge store, and it's just going north with the amount of gear this dude's got. And he's got everything that you could hope for, but you'll pay a decent price for it as well. And he came to me, and I went there and I hung out. I'm talking with him about life, and we just hang out in the store and talk. And he said, hey, I don't have many of the CRTs anymore. And I said, well, bro, I've got them all in my storage room. And he said, you want to get rid of them? And I said, maybe. I got a bunch of the 20-inch Trinitrons that I don't need. And he said that people are coming into his store and asking for 20-inch Trinitrons. So we might make a bit of a swap. He's got a whole bunch of old retro PC gear that I want. I might give him a couple of 20-inch Trinitrons, and we'll make some sort of deal. So because I'm real bad at selling individual things. I never list my crap on local marketplace. I don't know why. I never get around to it or think it. But so if I could just like give him a bunch of stuff and I could just go through his store and pick out what I need, that would be a perfect arrangement for me.
Yeah, I've got a lot of those things that I don't know what to do about like size on things, because now I've been stacking up these older TVs that I've been kind of holding on to and things, and it's like, wow, you got like 20 or 15 like old RF Trinitrons. What are you going to do with all these things, right? The end of the point eventually. Yeah.
Well, I hope the RF we could use the.
Yeah. I know what I mean. But
hopefully.
just still, it's like
Sure.
Yeah, you want to jump in? Anything from the chat?
Yeah, we're just going to chat. I realize I've been ranting on here without going to the chat. So again, we appreciate everyone. If you can't hit a like, give us a like.
Yeah, why don't you hit the chat up? I'm gonna here. Let me do something. Let me try something. I'm gonna actually open up this.
Hey, delusional's here.
Yeah,
hey, buddy.
Dale,
We got
what's
different
up?
Steve. Oh, look at that.
There. So let's leave you down in the corner, and you can talk with everybody. I'm gonna actually. So this thing doesn't work. I was gonna just open it and poke around while we're here. You could jump on and monitor the chat if anybody wants to talk about some stuff, and I'll listen as we go.
Sega Frog for retro equipment connection issues. See the excellent book by Anthony Kalaitis, Scar Issue. I think you mean Scar Tissue. Wait, how does Red Hot Chili Peppers Anthony Kalaitis relate to CRTs? Please enlighten me of that connection.
So we just in case people want to know the model number, this is a KV1936RH. It is from the let's see, it's from 1985, and so it's RF only. It does have a remote sensor and some features. I haven't dug too much into it, but it's got some awesome. Look at this beautiful and this isn't. Hey, this isn't faux wood on plastic. This is the really. I mean, it may be on plastic, but it's a higher quality of
okay, it's good quality stuff.
Weird. Yeah. I mean, it's wood. It feels like real wood.
Wood grain itself.
Yeah,
whatever
it
just looks.
It's not the kind that. Yeah, it's actually got wood on it. It's like wood paneling around the shell for some reason. So it's really.
Hey, this is a great question that was just asked in the chat that I realized I've never thought before. Many of the Sony flat screens are called KV something, right? That's the model number. What is the KV? Good question, right? I'm like, I never thought of that before.
It's just
consumer prefix.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably short for something, but
right.
This is a product. This one's actually says it's a product of Sony Corporation of America out of San Diego, California.
Wow.
So yeah, a little audience cheer.
Was there a factory? I forget the Sony documentary. Was there the American factory? There's not just, they weren't all made in Japan. I know I'm pretty sure there was a Sony American factory at one stage.
So today we're going all Uncle Buck on this thing. We're gonna I'm not wasting any more time with using my long screwdriver. I'm gonna use the power drill here on it.
He's ready to go.
So let me get this.
Okay, we'll drill it in.
There we go, baby. There's a ton of screws back here. I don't know. I've never opened this. Now that's speed. Let's see. Okay. I don't know whether that's it or if I'm gonna have to. There's 30 other screws.
Yeah, look at that. Mystery. All right.
Cool.
I
think that's it. Oh, let's hope I don't bust it just trying to do it.
So I guess that black plastic is all going to pull off.
Yeah, there's one more screw. Yeah, because it's got a wood bottom. The bottom of it's wood.
So going to the chat, memory techniques. So a CRT, if you're looking at the CRT, facing a television, it starts in the top left corner and then goes to all the way to the right and then back again. So if you're looking at it, top left. And you can verify this by using a tool such as the lag testing tools. And when you place the device sensor at different parts of the screen, you can see how long it takes. So top left if you're looking at the screen.
Look at this.
Okay, the black plastic's
got
come
a
off.
little serviceman label here. I don't know.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not. It tells you a couple things where. Wow, it tells you. It points to where to make adjustments. Like this little diagram.
Okay, yeah.
It's like if you're a serviceman, it says where to make an adjustment.
Look at that. It's so simplistic. Like there's really not much going on in there.
Like look at how much it's. Again, this is the craziest thing is this is all solid like wood.
Mm-hmm.
I pulled that back plastic off, and everything in here is wood. Let's see if that other camera
Right,
looks
the
at it
base
better.
is wood, the sides are wood.
Like, and it's got like wood carpentry framing in here to keep it like that. It's pretty interesting.
Maybe someone who knows history can answer this better for us. Was plastic just not around then, or did they deliberately decide?
Oh, this was you have to remember that the original first CRTs were huge pieces of furniture that were wood, and they had a little tube in it. So I think it's just a thing of like the public being used to that, where it was like a piece of furniture, and the tube just kept getting bigger and bigger, and then. So it was obviously like a style thing. Plus, I'd imagine...
So you think it was style? It's not like they could have made a plastic.
I do, but I also think that maybe the plastics weren't as... I imagine in like the 70s, plastics weren't where they would have been in the 90s, obviously.
Sure, that makes sense.
Where it's like, well, now we've perfected plastic, so it's actually better and cheaper for us to use that. Because again, then if you make a plastic mold, you don't do any of this. I mean, this has to be like machine or like, put together by hand by either
again,
machine.
So remind us again, what year is that set?
I'm trying to find a date on here from this one. I did look this range was made in 1985. Around that point. I'm trying to see if I see anything else. The degaussing cable says that was made in Taiwan. It has one Sony speaker over here made in Taiwan. Not actually seeing if. Let's take this neck board off
pulls
here.
out pretty easy. Okay.
Yeah, this is just, it's even got a focus adjustment on there. Wow. And H-stat. So it's got static, like this is a lot like this looks a lot like a monitor board almost, this C board. Because you got drive
static
controls,
there. Okay.
sub-bright, each color drive.
Are they pots? We can't quite see.
Yeah,
from
they're
this.
pots.
They're pots. Okay.
Actually, this thing, look how nice this is. This isn't even like soldered in to the. This one's not even soldered in.
Just ripped it off, huh?
Yeah, it's not even soldered into the.
Oh yeah, okay.
So
got the large static convergence to the bottom, and then the orange pots all the way around.
This would, turning it will adjust that horizontal convergence. These two are just being these two right here would normally be on the back of the flyback, but that's covered up over here. So Sony did that sometimes, put them over here, and then the rest of these are for color drives. These, and then this one is sub-bright. So I don't know that anybody's ever been in here. I don't know why it stopped working. I guess I was just going to look around in here for a second, see if I see anything, and then we could try.
Have a poke around. So it's interesting. We really just got that circuit board at the bottom and the deflection board at the back of the gun.
This is crazy. Yeah, it's...
Do you broadly, these really older sets, you've done a few of them now, do you think they're easier to work with, like the old PCBs back in the day?
This one for sure is, because it's all one board. This is like a super simple high-end television. We got a lot of room to work out. I might be able to add a composite mod to this one, and it might be isolated. I don't think it is, but it might be. It doesn't look like it probably is, but
might be isolated. What do you mean by isolated?
It has like its isolation transformer, or it's a hot chassis. We've talked about that before.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Whether like high voltage runs all through it, or if the voltage comes into the power supply part and then is, has its own transformer and then comes out from there, it's have to see on that. And well, let's just I'm just seeing if there's anything that looks dodgy here. I think that if I'm down in this thing, it looks even like the power button, which is right here, he said it was unresponsive. I don't know. Is that the power button? No. That would
be great if that was all it was the power button.
I know, right? So that's actually the IR sensor that I was looking at. Okay. Well, we got a fuse in here. It's not blown. I don't see any capacitors or anything that look bad. I wonder if I could get this board out easily. It's obviously being held in. That screw, and the screw, and this screw. There's the power button up top, actually. Okay. So, yeah. Let's see. Where's that power button? Trying to make sure. Okay. So let's we'll try it out and see what happens. If I get any power to it or not. I've got so to be safe, everybody, this is when you may be using a hot TV, you use one of these, which is an external isolation transformer. So that's not going to help me personally, like keeping myself safe, but this will protect the equipment in this room if I short something out from like feeding back into the circuit and blowing something else out.
Actually, while you were doing that, I also looked up MrAddons.com, and Mr. Addons does have the Reflex RF adapter in stock for $35 right now. So that adapter allows you to convert the yellow composite cable, to RF. So this is a great solution. If you have an RF-only CRT, no other way to get inputs to it. This box, you can get a yellow plug, and then you can get much more capability. So they were out of stock for a long time. I'm just looking at MrAddons.com right now, and they're in stock for $35. It really is an awesome way to breathe new life into an RF-only CRT. A very good solution.
Well, and it's simple to use, and they're small. They don't take up a lot of space.
You got one, haven't you, Steve?
Yeah, and I've done a video on them too. They're good. We're gonna. I could tell that there's a bunch of. Like this connector that I just attached. Maybe I could. This point. It looks like has been either the factory reflowed solder after assembling it, or it's been done at some point throughout the lifespan of this. Also the CRT socket. But if I look closely. Man, some of this like old original solder, of course, on like these points, you can tell where it's oxidizing and it's getting a little ring around it. And that's probably what my problem is here, is just a worn out component somewhere or solder point if it's not, if it was working and then it just stops working.
So your first step here might be just to reflow a bunch of solder points and just see what difference that makes.
Yeah, if I test it and don't get anything, then like from that point, yes, I think it would be... I would have to disassemble it, and then that's going to be the first thing to check for is that. And then you know what else is going to happen? I'm going to get in there. This is guaranteed to happen. I'll get in here and I'll check a couple capacitors with a meter, and every single one of them is probably going to read bad. You know?
So that tells you what? You got to replace them or what?
Yeah, like it tells me it's got to be replaced. So I'll get in there and I'll be like, well, it has bad solder on 75% of the board. 75% of the capacitors read bad. So you're already starting kind of an uphill battle. All right.
I've been noticing the capacitor issue is something when I'm looking at these retro PCs. It's a factor as well. So my nice Dell Precision 390 Core 2 system, a couple of the capacitors of the motherboard look very spicy. They've got the top blowing up. Stuff's coming out. Now, the whole thing works, But actually that I have a problem with USB power in this, that if I'm plugging stuff into the USB, it's not working correctly. Now, I don't know, but it could be that those capacitors on the motherboard are what is having a problem with USB power. And I think also the Pentium 4 system I have here, it also has the capacitors that have the whoop coming up there, and you can see that they're not looking good.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I remember on that era, kind of those have
on that era.
Yeah.
So I'm going to open up that Dell. The Dell Precision is an amazing piece of engineering. Everything Dell have done a great job, but I'm going to eventually pull it all apart, and there's only like 4 capacitors to replace, and they're through hole, so it won't be very hard. But it's a factor even on retro PCs, not just with CRTs.
So what I'm looking for here is, I mean, see, this is a bit dodgy, but normally I'd be looking for like some test points to be able to maybe see if I'm getting voltage somewhere. This may say stuff like that, but gosh, I'm still like a bit, I'm a bit hesitant to just poke on a diode and a ground to see if I get like 1,000 volts, which is one of them says here.
Yeah, okay,
and it doesn't like say, it just says D something. There's 1,000 volts at that point. So
hey, no problem. Super cash. 1,000 volts, no worries.
Convergence voltage is a few thousand voltage less than the anode voltage.
Yeah, this TV came from the 80s, dude, when men were men.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, so this one does not probably have an isolation transformer, okay? So that if it's telling me these warnings, it's saying what it's saying is dynamic convergence can't be adjusted.
Huh.
So you can't, which is edge convergence. So I don't know why it's saying that, but it just says you can't adjust it. There's no adjustment for it. It also has a bunch of leads on top of the yoke here that are 100% exposed, and there will be a lot of voltage running through that. So if you just like grabbed that sucker like you would on another PVM and did that, you'd be lit up like a
dude.
Christmas
This TV
tree.
comes from the 80s. Men were men. There was none of this woke bullshit going on. All right, just get zapped, motherfucker. Get zapped,
Come on,
okay?
baby. This is a Reagan special.
Get zapped like a real heterosexual man. Come on.
Here we go, baby. All right, I'm gonna first thing I'm gonna do is I've got it plugged in, but I don't have that thing turned on. I just want to make sure I don't like knock the neck board against something. We're gonna turn it around to the front side. Now the cool thing about this TV is it has a little tray with the door still there.
Oh yeah, that's nice. That's cute. Okay.
So let's just see again. Let's see if we get anything from just turning power on. Power's going in.
Okay.
Let's just see.
What happens?
Absolutely nothing.
0. Okay.
0, 0. I'll make sure that's on. And that's giving me, 120 volts. Interesting. So let's turn it around. I'm going to turn the power off for a second while I turn it around. Okay. There's a fuse here. Actually, there's not like anything to really test upon. But this shouldn't be hard to pull this chassis while we're just looking here before we even do anything else. So that's
the real deal, baby. We got the master.
This is the degaussing. Yeah, this is the degaussing cable, which I just removed there.
So wait, what would you do with it? That was connected to the PCB, was it? And you could press a button and degauss? Or what does that cable do?
Well, what happens is it just degausses at the startup of the television.
Oh,
so that's right next to the voltage mains, and basically it's like shorting it out and making that bong a huge.
Because the degauss needs a lot of energy.
Yeah. So I guarantee. I mean, this has got to be if it was working before, it's got to be an issue with that. Okay, there's some goofy stuff that's connected. For example, there's a headphones jack. I'm making sure, I don't know whether I have to unscrew it. There's the RF. So we'll have to do something because that's all soldered into the board where I'll have to take it all the way out. Okay. Let me get some. This is the secret. So I got an interesting thing that happened the other day to me.
Okay.
I was here. Let me get these pictures and then I'll do this because this has to do with that. So I was working on. I made a big post on Twitter about working on this B&O, Bang & Olufsen television, and I had these TVs are insane. Like they're like this. They're from four years newer than this. 4 years later, and they have 12 boards inside of them. 12. And 8 of those have a ton of capacitors on them. And they're all need to be rebuilt. Similarly, the problems we're having here. But there's a power supply board that I waited. It was the second to last. So I had restored 6 boards before this one. And thankfully, like I tested every single board. I had to reassemble a TV, test it after I did it, because if you don't do that, guys, if you get in here messing with these TVs, you do a bunch of boards at once, and you have a problem, you'll have no idea where to go where the board problem happened. So that's why when you have a bunch of boards in a TV, it's best to do one at a time. If the TV works, go put it back in, test it, make sure nothing crazy happens. Because I rebuilt this one board, and I mean, I took it, I triple checked everything before I put it back together. And I put it in there, and I turned the power on, and it just starts going, and it worked perfectly every time before this. It just starts going doot, doot, and not powering on. It's like trying to get going, it just stops, goes to standby, and it just keeps making this little bump noise where it's like boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, what the heck, man? So I'm scrambling, taking this thing apart, and I had found... I mean, thankfully, again, I'd taken pictures of the board thoroughly with the old capacitors in it. And then afterwards, what had happened is the board was printed incorrectly and the schematic was printed incorrectly. There was a capacitor that was a huge filter capacitor that was inverted. So it was installed incorrectly according to the board. So what I had done was I had mistakenly gone in, removed all the capacitors, marked everything down, and then I put in the replacement according to what I thought was correct on the board. And when I did, it was inverted, and it didn't work. Thankfully, nothing got damaged. I've had that happen where you invert a cap and it blows out. And
how did you work out it was inverted?
Because I was sitting there driving myself crazy, so I removed all the capacitors, and then I started analyzing the old photos that I'd taken before. And this was after, I mean, and I had like gone in, I was like, it's something I did this time that changed. Nothing has changed before this. None of these other boards are hurt or damaged. And so I said, something is not right about what I had done. So like I went in first off and I took, so this was another interesting thing. A lot of those TVs, sometimes now I'm running into these things where they have these really weird value capacitors. Okay. Like, not very common. So one of them was a 0.22 microfarad capacitor. Okay? Mouser doesn't...
Okay, now, before we go on, to help everyone in the chat here, with capacitors, when we're replacing them, there's 2 values on a capacitor, right? It's voltage and capacitance, which is the UF. Now, if I remember correctly, the voltage can be more, but the capacitance has to be exactly the same. Did I remember that correctly?
Well, that's a great rule to follow, but you will run into sometimes in the world where, you know, it does, even the capacitance doesn't have to be like, you're going to get like, you don't know these things. So yes, when you're talking about general rule of thumb, what you said is the way you should go always. But like I've run into a situation where I've again pulled some weird device, pulled it out, it has a big fat capacitor, and I could get a capacitor that's darn close to that UF, and I've changed it, and depending on that application, it's not a big deal. but sometimes it's a huge deal if you do the wrong one. So you could damage things because it's not sending in the design voltage. But anyway, this one again is so normally like if you go to again Mouser, which is the company I buy most of them from, basically the smallest capacitance through hole electrolytic capacitor you can get is something like this, which I don't know if it'll actually go in there and do that. But what it is this is a 0.47 on the capacitance. So you come in and this has got a power supply with these 0.22 microfarad capacitors, and you're like, how do I even get this capacitor replaced? Because I pull the capacitors are reading really bad, like 30 ohms, almost completely dried. So a solution with these is what you could do is you tie them in a series. So
okay,
I could show you this in a practical example here. So I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to show you guys what this capacitor is reading.
Sure. Do that for a second. Wait.
Okay. So yeah, everybody look on this thing. It's testing. Oh, no known part. Never mind. It's not connected. Sorry. Here we go. Let me do that again.
He's the third child that wanted to come into the room here. Oh yeah, that capacitor's connected. You're still.
Yes, that's cute. Okay, so this is reading. I mean, it's supposed to be basically 470, but they're all a little bit off from that. It's within tolerance, but it's reading 501. Okay, well, you could take your capacitor like this and tie it in series. So you take your positive lead, comes out, and then you got your negative lead, right?
So dodgy. I love it.
I know, right? So here's what you could do. So you take the negative and then you feed it into the positive of a second one. So you take two of these capacitors, and what I do is I would like do that and then just take the two leads that you're connected together and I mean twist them up together. Let me show you. So you twist those up and then you put a little dab of solder right in there for your joint to be good.
Okay.
But what that does is, and then here's the way I do it. I clip the lead down as far as I can, and then I rub the a middle with a couple layers of electrical tape just so nothing will dodge out. So if I do that though, check this out. So we were at 500. Then if I take this and do that, hopefully all this is going to get a good reading. Yeah, see, so I have taken that from the 500. Look at that. It cuts it down to the same, it's still above 50 volts, but now it's down to that 0.2, it's basically 0.238. So that's how you get down. You could do that with capacitors. You run them in series like that, and it dips them to half the rating if you're using the same. Now, if you do and run them in parallel, it makes them go up to a double.
Right. Okay. Some basic electrical engineering here. Sure.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't really do this for stuff that I could find, but if you run into a situation where you have 1.22 microfarad capacitor, then that's the solution I came up with, and that worked. But eventually, yeah, I found out that this crazy thing had the print wrong. So I finally, I went into my wife and I was like, God, I'm about to hit myself in the head. It was like 9 o'clock at night. Boom. It's like I got hit over the head with a I was like ready to be done. I was like, I'm going to plug this in. It's going to work perfectly. I triple checked it and it gave me all these problems. I was like, I can't stop till I fix this or I'm never going to go to sleep tonight.
It can be like that.
So I just, figured it out finally, but it took a while. And then the bad thing is like something like that happens and I really can't charge the client for all that time,
Yeah, that's something we've talked a lot about. There we go, doggy. On this channel, the difficulties of the profession that you're in. It's hard. This is old technology. You just don't know. It's very hard to say this will take X number of hours. And I think relies on you having a very good relationship with your clients, which you do, to make sure that they're informed and they understand the risks and the possible outcomes. That it's hard to say this will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 hours. And then you also have to make a judgment call at some stage. Look, this is taking so long. I can't get this through. You know what you're doing. There's really no one better than you that has this knowledge out here, that if you can't get to it, then all right.
Well,
there's something else going on there.
Yeah, then in that case, you're like, what did I do to make this bad to where I have to figure this out? Because you can't.
And then you feel bad. You're a professional. You want to get it done.
Yeah, you're like, I can't have it be broken. All right, let's see if we can get this board to come out at all. It's kind of, there's one side. It's got one more screw over here. But the cool thing about this one is, look how much room would be inside. You could do all kinds of stuff in here if you wanted.
There is. Going to the chat here, Genzel Bells in Netherlands. Right on, brother. There's a lot of good Netherlands. Good place. Love it. So he's saying that he needs to go RF to composite. And we were talking about using a VCR to do that.
Yes.
And he was coming across the issue that because we're all beautiful socialist Europe, we're all SCART. So he's saying that all the TVs he's saying are SCART in, SCART out. RF in, RF out, and there's not that composite on the, which I see it as well around here with my same. I wonder, could you use a SCART breakout cable to poke through what is actually coming out of the SCART cable? My point being that what's coming out of SCART, remember SCART is RGB, 3 lines, and an extra line for sync. And I'm sorry if I'm explaining stuff that you already know. I'll just go in case someone doesn't know. It's basically 4, RGB and sync. RGBS is what it's called. Now, often sync is not just straight sync. It's actually composite video. Composite video has video and sync in it. And if you've ever heard the term C-sync, that means clear sync? I don't know. That means sync that's just sync. Now, sometimes SCART is the C-sync, just the straight sync. Sometimes, though, SCART is basically composite video on the sync line, and that will work the same way for most devices. So maybe you could use a SCART breakout cable to see the sync line. Is it pure sync, or is it composite video with the sync built in? Maybe. SCART, Andre says SCART can carry a lot of singles, composite, and S video. Absolutely. So SCART is just a plug, and it doesn't define the signal type or anything. So typically SCART is RGBS, but as I said, you can have composite over SCART, and that just means the sync line has composite instead. It is possible to have S-video over SCART, and it happens, as I've seen it, mostly in high-end Trinitron sets, that they're auxiliary plugs, not the main, like, number 1 SCART input, but the number 3 or even 4 have the ability to accept S-video over the SCART plug. And I've even seen, to get really wacky, people that are running component video over SCART. That means they've got a SCART switcher, and they are running their own custom solution to just send those signals over the SCART connector. Jenga, so I believe that there is composite pin on the RGB connector. So yeah, analyze that sync pin. That may be composite video coming out of that, or there may even be an option. I know my VCR that we're seeing right here, which has a DVD and a VHS, it has options. It can output composite over that, or it can output pure RGBS.
All right.
Andre, my Philips CRT does RGB on SCART 1 and composite video on SCART 2. Right. Yes, Steve, go ahead, sir.
Oh, no, I was just about to pull this main board. It's definitely got bad solder.
All right, so that's a factor. A little bit of heat gun action might be needed.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to say right off what exactly. Let's pop this guy off.
So going also to the chat, Mex Drago. What's a good electrical class to take that would aid in fixing CRTs? Unfortunately, I think it's such a niche area that there really isn't broadly these classes. I know Steve had to learn it itself. Andy from CRT Database had to learn it himself. It's not really, because it's so niche, there's not really this info out there or organized classes, unfortunately.
Say, like, what is this? Well, there's just a random piece of wood that fell off. I don't know where it was supposed to be mounted.
Okay. So Jenga Bells, the RF is not connected to the SCART circuit. So if he's pumping RF into the VCR, it's not even hitting the SCART circuit. So look, fair enough. Okay.
All right.
If it's R enough, right? Okay, Jenga, I understand what you're saying right now. Yeah, that's a tough one to go to from RF to composite. I'm trying to think what I did for that. Do I have an AliExpress? How would I have gone? That's a good point. I'm not really sure after most of this bottle of wine. I'm not okay. He's pulled the circuit board out. God damn.
Okay, so if we look here, I mean, if I'm just looking at something, I mean, this is a good example, kind of. I hope I can get in there and just show you. So I'm gonna try. We'll see if it actually gets any like focus on this. But this is the kind of stuff that, you know, even if you like sit here for all day and mess with trying to troubleshoot this, I feel like to me it's mostly time wasted unless you're I think you just keep rolling down and running into the same issue over and over again. This one is like the pin amp.
Oh yeah, we see it's in focus now.
Yep. Okay, so there's a bunch of pins that look like they're just like separating from the solder here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of thing is like multiplied. It's not all, but it's a lot of this board has it. So that's like, let me get back up there. There we go. So that's definitely something that I'll just have to go in and do before really maybe try to find a service manual for it. Because there are some test points, and what you could do is I just need to find out more. Like, I could pull this up, turn it on, and if I could find out where power is, like, I know that I would find like 125 volts coming here, but then you try to find where it goes off to other places and if the voltage changes. But I think this is
you've got to poke around. You
can
see 120s going in, and you got to start poking around. How far is power getting around this system?
Yeah, but there's so many spots that I believe that it's got to be just solder breakdown if this was working for the most part, unless something... This cap, so I don't see anything leaking. There is like, this is definitely a bulging cap. Let's see how, let's just take the, so like if you're curious, let's see what this reads. This device can read this in circuits.
Going to the chat here, memory techniques. I think the Flipper Zero isn't really, Steve and I don't really have, I know what it is, it's a device for, but we're not the experts on that.
Yeah, I have no idea about that
thing. How to use that. I don't know if it's particularly useful for the CRTs. Unfortunately, I'm thinking about Jenga Bells. How to go from RF to composite without a VCR? That's the question that's going through my head right now. I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying to. I think in my mind I had an AliExpress product that did that ages ago, but that's pretty dodgy. That's not.
Just remember that the Mr. Add-ons product is going to be NTSC only, okay? I just want to make sure.
Right, but it goes composite to RF.
Yeah.
I want that. He's talking about the opposite direction. So we've got an RF signal that we want to display on a composite. We need a composite out.
Yeah, you would still use... VCR, or I guess what's another thing that you would put it in and it would spit it out? RF to. So right. Maybe what about one of those old RF devices that like don't they do that? Like they take an RF and give you a composite? Is that what you want, or you want?
Yes, we want RF in, composite out is the so absolutely VCRs, but let's just like that is it. But let's just say for a moment that's like, not a solution.
Those old, I mean, in America we had those digital converter boxes that came out. Okay. They take cable, they have an RF in, and then they usually have a breakout for RCA. It was when they were switching over the standard. They have both RF and RCA out. So they have, they were meant for TVs that couldn't get the OTAs that went to digital in America. So TVs, they used to have just the channel. Now they went to 0.1 and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I know of that would do that, where you stick RF in that and then it converts it to old RF channels and it converts it to composite video. So what was I even looking at here? I want to figure this capacitor next to this giant filter capacitor right here looks nasty from the top. It's a 22 microfarad right here. It's pretty fat. Looks nasty. Ugh. I mean, it looks so nasty. I think it's leaking down on the board. Like,
ugh, okay.
It's gotten so bad that actually, look at this. This is the other side of it. I'm probably gonna like electrocute myself on a
move the camera, move it up a little bit. Yeah.
This right here. Whoops. Oh, the camera froze. No, there we go. It's starting to freeze a little bit. All right, I'm gonna try to jerk it around. I don't know what's going on with it. Shouldn't be so jerky. Good. So anyway, the right here is a bunch of like. It's probably gonna be impossible to see it. But there's a bunch. There's like a hairline hole that's developed. If I show you, if I can point to the right thing. Here we go. Right there, where I'm pointing. There's a hairline hole that's developed, and electrolytic fluid has poured through that hole and come out to this side because that capacitor is no good. It's 20. It's got to be reading high. Let me just test that and see what it's going to pop on here as. I should just have to put the leads on each other's side right there. And we'll even see if we even get a reading from it. It's not even registering on here. It's so bad.
Right. So what I'm hearing from you, Steve, is this old set has a bunch of like basic shit that you need to fix up first. You're seeing capacitors, you're seeing some shit that needs to be reflowed. Kind of do that, and then
I can't get a reading on that, but I want to pull that capacitor at least so I could show everybody. If I can get my you can keep going. I'm gonna get my desoldering tool here set up.
Oh, Steve's going for it.
We'll pull this apart and see what it's looking like.
I love it. We're getting Steve excited here. He's already trying to fix these.
So check it out. Like, I don't want to jerk this camera around and lose it, but I think I just did. We'll see.
Now we lost it.
I was worried about that. So I could turn the camera off and don't worry about it. I'll just disable it and I should be able to reactivate it and come back there. Okay. There we go. No, you're not coming back to me. All right. I think that it decided it didn't want.
Anyway, there we go. We're back to the main one again.
We'll work on this view for right now, because I've shown you kind of the cool stuff.
While I'm here, so we were discussing about how to go from RF to composite, and so my first thing is I just started to look on AliExpress and what they're offered, and I saw here instead. AliExpress has now a bunch of devices that go the opposite, composite to RF. And it's interesting. They're that same generic box like that you've seen for every other crap that comes from AliExpress. But AV to RF, I've never tested one of these. And I wonder how they might. It's fascinating. because AV to RF. So we put a composite in and we get an RF signal out, which is essentially doing what the Mr. Add-ons device is. Now, first of all, if you're listening to the chat, definitely buy the Mr. Add-ons device. For $35, it works. It's good. I'm not at all proposing that this is an alternate solution. I'm just fascinated by what they've got here, because there are these gaps in the technology that we're often using. For example, downscaling AV or downscaling HDMI to something that you can view at AV 15 kilohertz is a huge gap. There are ways to do it, but it's RetroTink, it's expensive, and you've either got RetroTink for $300, $400, $500, or the $5 device from AliExpress, which doesn't do the aspect ratio well. We'll take your 15:9 and squish it. But as I learnt when I visit Steve, that's what he uses on his setup, because there isn't really another good solution. So
yeah, that was for I mean, it depends what your kind of use case is. And it also depends on the display. I was like, sometimes you'll run into where if you're not too concerned about things, I still use the for example, I was went in the house and my family wanted to play game night together, so we play Wii, and I couldn't get that complicated. I was complaining about it. Couldn't get that complicated device to work on my TV for some reason. The GSBC all-in-one.
Oh yeah.
So I just went and literally popped in the RetroTink 2K or 2X with a composite video cable, and then used the aspect ratio setups on the TV, and it works. I mean, it works great, thankfully. But you can tell. I mean, it's upscaling a composite image, so it's like blurry a little bit. But here we go. Look at this one. Goodness gracious. Wait a second. I mean, is this camera really
show
dead?
Us the focus.
Is this camera really dead? Because this has got to be on film here. Please. All right, let's see. I've got my face. Let's go to workshop. Yep, this camera's not responding. But let me see if I can get it to respond here. I'll reset it one more time. And hopefully, even if I just reset it, maybe it'll like magically open up. That's not wanting to show up now at all. There we go. It's still wanting to do it. Like, if I turn down the I think I turned up the FPS for a recording. Let me see if I try it at 30 FPS. Sometimes it will work better.
All this to see a dodgy old broken capacitor. This is the true insights that we're providing you here on the RetroTech USA stream.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like now it's decided. Oh, there we go. Now it's jumping all over the place. Here we go.
Oh,
look at that.
How do we focus? All right.
Come on.
Focus on Steve's gnarly fingers. Oh,
there we go. Look at that.
Yeah. Ooh, that's spicy. Very spicy.
There we go.
Ooh. Yeah. Ooh. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you don't.
This could be
like what I'm trying to say is you don't have to sit there and be like, oh, this is what drives me nuts. Like, and it's one of the things that drives me crazy about a lot of these I call them the old timers on Facebook, right? They just like, oh, recapping is not repairing. Recapping is not repairing. Fix the device before you actually recap it. And a lot of times that's just stupid. Sorry, old timers. You can come on here and scream at me all you want to. But like, again, what are you going to do? You go sit here and you find I troubleshot it, and it took me 85 hours and I found all the bad solder and I did it one at a time. Well, this one just needs to be completely redone. So, I mean, these are 40-year-old capacitors that are 85 degree rated. So they're not going to be any good anymore anyway.
It's reasonable that they said. So what would be your game plan from here? Are you willing to put in the multiple hours that it takes?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll save this thing. I just don't know. I don't know when. And there's another one. But this one is like, I mean, if you get into some old school TVs, they really look bad or hard to diagnose because they're completely different. This one's not too bad. And it's all, I mean, like, if we look at this thing, what else, like, other than what we're talking about, what else really could have gone bad? Maybe, like, some of these transistors, but I don't see that. It's really easy to test the hot, and that's this one right here, this transistor, which is the horizontal output transistor.
This might also be a good lesson to Mex Drago in the chat, who was asking about how can you learn about this stuff? Where can you find this information?
It's really just
start
working
with
on it.
The oldest CRT you can find. Don't start with the newest one, right? The oldest one is going to be the most simple, the largest PCB, much more through-hole stuff.
Yeah, and
start
then
older.
And then if we look on, like, yeah, if you look on the back side, there's only parts on one side, really. So you can work through the whole, and it's just like a little bit more of a, I mean, this looks a lot like an arcade board level. Again, pretty simple, like or arcade chassis, pretty simple TV. There's not a huge part of stuff, but I think this is a hot chassis because there's like all kinds of points it's pointing to where I'm sure that means hot voltage is coming and like running all over this board. It's not isolated to one spot. Like, I mean, every transformer, everything on here has these little lightning bolts. Where's one of them? Where it's like a lightning bolt arrow. See, it's hard to do this in, but
okay, we see
lightning bolt arrows.
Yep. So what do they mean?
Some kind of high voltage is coming through there, like those points. Right. So that's where it's like, I mean, some of them make sense. They're coming out of the transformers, but some of them are just like an end of a diode or a capacitor. Like the horizontal output has a big thing. That's not always the case where it's when it's isolated. So I think this is a hot chassis if I had to guess. There's a test point for 24 volts though, I found. So like that's a point you could probe on here when it's working and make sure you get 24 volts.
All right. So it seems like you've got to just sort of devote a couple of hours to poking around, replacing a few caps, and then see where you're at after.
So what happened on that other TV that I've got, which is a little bit newer one of these, it's another Trinitron. The one of these resistors right here that looks like this just caught fire, which it looks like a giant block. And it gets so hot. Like these are super hot. Because again, it's rated for 20 watts, 200 ohms. What's this other one? 10 watts, 2.2 ohms. But this one, I mean, this looks good inside for the most part. You know, those capacitors are bad, but they didn't like do any permanent damage. You let the dog back out? Here, go back to this view. Yeah, my dog Cole's in here with me, but he's been sleeping the whole time.
Okay. Yeah, I had to let him out. He was getting a bit antsy. Poor Venom. He's been dealing. He's an older brother now.
Yeah.
When the twins first came, he was having like some crazy reaction, like a full on hormonal, like his eyes are big and he's panting and he was going like really emotionally, hormonally nuts. And it took him a whole bunch of days to really calm down. And
really,
now he's clearly bonded with the kids. Whenever they make a noise, he's always observing. He feels the need to, watch over them, and I knew that. And I'm fascinated to know, and I don't know if I can know that. Like, does the dog feel bonded to the girls just because they're twins here right now, or was it because he spent many hours on the couch while my partner was pregnant, next to her in the belly there, and we don't know, like. Did that cause some bonding? And then he knows that these are the children that were previously in her, or is it just that? It's fascinating. So
yeah.
He still, if they cry, he still gets a little agitated. But he's mostly calmed down now and mostly settled into his role. big brother that he needs to look out. And God forbid someone comes to the door. Oh my God, then he's gonna bark at you, nonstop.
Yeah, I remember when I had my big dog. He was young too. Like I had to take blankets from the babies, and like I'd hang them up in the house, like from the hospital, before you'd bring them home to the dogs, so they would get used to the smell of the babies. And I knew that was what I mean. That's the only thing I did, but that did help where he wasn't surprised or anything. But you will get. I mean, dogs are obviously they're part of a pack family, and they feel like they get in their head that it's their job to be protective or something. They'll do that for sure.
Definitely feels that. And sometimes, like mostly he's cool. And then I think if they really cry a lot,
it's like, what is he doing? Yeah.
Again, that hormonal thing, like something kicks in. It's like, again, a little bit of mania, a little bit of hormonal craziness. Like his eyes get big and then he goes nuts. And then I've got to give him a little smack across the snout. Like, no, don't jump in the cot. Like, no, boom. And then he calms down. And then almost like then he calms down and he like snaps out of it. And he's like, oh, okay, I understand. I need to be calm now. So we view it like in the big picture, like, okay, he's another member of the family. He's the third child. And look, we're all emotional in this house. So the dog's got emotions. We've got emotions. We're all dealing with our emotions. We appreciate that. That's it. So he's a valued member of the house.
Well, I think that, I was going to see, how are you doing? You want to, we could call it a Friday.
I think we might call it. I think I got to very soon go off and feed my children and tend to my family. But it's been a good one. Wow, I've really enjoyed getting into that. I love it. Love your energy, Steve. You dove right in and started to just fix this friggin' television. We appreciate that, your energy and enthusiasm.
Well, look for a future information episode on these TVs and etc. So that'll be coming too. So
right on.
We'll get them. Hopefully, get them working again. I'm not gonna. I mean, that's the good thing about getting them for free. You just have to put the effort into work on them. But
it's been fun. I've ripped through this bottle of wine.
Look at you.
Good. I'm powered. I'm fired up.
Yes.
John, thank you very much in the chat. I appreciate everybody
who
said such good sentiments here. I haven't really publicized this on social media. I'm not really that kind who wants to post a picture or something. So love that we can share that with you, share some CRT or insights, hear a little bit. We learned about plasmas. We learned a little about who's buying in individual areas, trying to solve your issues as well. Steve saw that. So yeah, thanks. It's been a good. Let's do it again next week. I think we can do it again.
Well, cool. If you're ready,
soon, sir.
Let's do it. All right, guys. Have a great Friday. Remember to get flowers for your favorite CRT. Just kidding. All right. You guys have a good evening.